Hello, Grade 9 Religion. This is your intro video for Unit 8. Unit 8 is called Decreation. Unit 7 was Creation. Unit 8 is Decreation. And the next unit, Unit 9, will be called Recreation. We're basically evaluating this creation narrative in the Bible where by which we are close with God. God gives Adam and Eve the Garden of Eden, and they're living happily. And then decreation is where we separate from God, so we get further away from God. They eat the apple. The devil convinces Eve to eat the apple. She brings the apple to Adam, convinces him to eat the apple, and then they are somehow separated from God. So let's just delve into that a little bit. I'm not going to explain it all. You can come to the seminars, but I'll discuss the concept a little bit, and then I'll talk about the assignment that you have to do for this unit. Decreation is essentially that they get into this story of the snake when it comes into the garden and convinces Adam and Eve to eat the apple. Talks about the first couple sins and then what the effects of those sins are. There's some very powerful imagery in this. The snake symbolizing the devil, bringing evil into the garden. Another symbol of this concept of eating the fruit and how that is construed as knowledge. Adam and Eve getting knowledge of themselves, which almost brings them away from God even more. They begin to become ashamed that they're naked. They hide from God. This is this kind of concept that they're being, separated from this relationship that they had with God. Then we get into this concept, if God created us perfect and God created us in this image of himself, where does sin come from? Why do we sin? We get into the concept of free will, the fact that we can make decisions and choose to sin. Where does that come from? We talk about the four effects of sin, five, sorry. What happens when we do sin? It alienates us from ourselves, alienates us from God, alienates us from each other, alienates us from nature. And we look at the imagery of that creation story and how that happens. So we talk about those effects of sin. We need to know this. And then we come into the questions. So these questions will ask us what that symbolism of the snake and the eating of the fruit meant, what the purpose or the effects of sin are. We talk about this main point of the flood story. That's Noah's Ark. So Noah's Ark, this is another concept of decreation, of us being separated from God. God flooded the earth because he was not happy with humans in the way that we were living. We had removed ourselves from that creation narrative where God created us this perfect world for us to use and showed his love for us in that creation story. And we begin to go against God, using our free will to sin. We get separated from God, so he floods the earth. When the flood is over, he gives us this rainbow, this sign of healing, this covenant, this agreement, this contract that he makes with us and that he renews, and he promises Noah that he won't flood the earth again. It's this kind of this sign of his unconditional love for humans. And so again, we go from that decreation, that separation of the flood and that punishment, back to recreation, this rainbow, this covenant that he renews with man. Okay, so we want to talk about these different effects, how sin alienates nations from one another, and these concepts. These questions will really help you understand this decreation concept. Once we understand the decreation concept, we want to go to this prayer journal, and this is basically going to be a prayer that deals with some form of decreation. Environmental pollution, that's something that we do that is separate from nature, that alienates us from nature, that alienates us from God. Crime against each other, violence against each other, destruction of life or property. These are all examples of our free will, our actions of sin that remove us and this decreation narrative. It removes us from God. Okay, so we're going to write a prayer about it. The prayer should have 3 paragraphs. Once again, we want to speak to God about what is the decreation we're talking about and how is it wrong. Okay, how it's removed us from his good graces. We want to ask this prayer. We want to pray for those that are responsible for this decreation, and we also want to pray for those who are hurt by it. So remember, There's the free will, the evil, the snake that causes the sin. And then there is the effects of the sin, the alienation from God, alienation from each other, alienation from ourselves, alienation between nations. Who are the people that are hurt by that sin? Okay, so that this, by writing this prayer and by speaking about these three different things, I want you to display your learning on decreation, and I want you to speak to that. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.